Okay, thanks, Miriam. And now we're moving on to speak to another damn fine advice agent, Kate Hill from Adviseable. Hello, Kate. How are you this evening?
Yes, good, thank you. A little less hazy and smoky in Sydney today, so that's always a good thing.
Yeah.
We can breathe without masks today.
Yeah. Look, people, yes, and we could talk about that for the next 15 minutes, but we won't. I think people could be forgiven for believing, if you tune into mainstream media, that Australia pretty much stops with Sydney and Melbourne. But you and I both know there's an amazing world of possibilities in Australia, right across Australia, in some of the smaller capital cities and some of the regional areas. And even though you're based in Sydney, you range very widely with what you do across the country.
Terry, I'm really, really sorry, but the connection was just a little dodgy there. And I actually missed most of what you said. I'm really sorry. Could you just summarise quickly?
Yes, we're just looking to talk about those important parts of Australia that aren't Sydney and Melbourne. And
yes.
I know that you move around the country a lot with what you do.
Yes.
So let's talk about some of the exciting places outside the two biggest cities where prices have been growing.
Absolutely. So I guess the question we're answering here is there the Australian property market beyond the big two cities? And absolutely there is. And I think that really a lot of people miss out on investing in property in these areas. They don't consider them. Perhaps, they think they need $100,000 or $800,000 to spend, and they don't buy here because they don't know these areas. And I think it's one of the biggest mistakes that people can make. A lot of these areas, they perform exceptionally well, often better than Sydney and Melbourne and the big cities. And they don't cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars, not hundreds of thousands of dollars, but yes, they don't cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars, but they also don't cost you hundreds of dollars a week to hold in terms of cash flow, which is also an important consideration for people. So while we as buyers agents, obviously we are very active in Sydney at the moment, we are also very active in these other areas around Australia. I think like everyone else has been saying so far, we're struggling with real lack of quality listings. People very reluctant to list their properties for sale. All the agents are reporting that same thing. That seems to be across the board in a lot of these areas. So how do we do this, Terry? Do you just want to go through the country or there's a lot.
Let's just talk about some of the examples. Perhaps we could talk about Adelaide. I know that
Adelaide, beautiful
Adelaide.
Adelaide.
I like Adelaide. I talk about it all the time. Struggling to get people interested, but I know that you agree with me that that's an underrated market.
It is, and I really think you are spoilt for choice in Adelaide. There are so many good spots there. It's as with anywhere, it's going to come down to your price point, your cash flow needs, where you might already have property, what kind of property fits into your portfolio. But I really genuinely think you're spoilt for choice in terms of really great areas to buy in Adelaide. If you look at the northern suburbs, for example, great yields, low pricing, you can buy a very, very decent property there for under $300,000. Plenty of infrastructure spending. You've got really very strong industrial sector there. It's a major area for transport and logistics, obviously because of its location there in the north of Adelaide. Really many significant jobs nodes, as you would call them. And you've got the Edinburgh Defence Facility up there. It's really what's not to love, but it just gets a bit of a not a bad reputation, but I really just think it's underrated. Very strong growth drivers, great properties, great yields. I don't understand it. What's not to love?
No, it's really easy to get a bad reputation. It's really hard to lose it. And Adelaide's got a reputation as being sort of like a no growth sort of a place. Now, we know that Adelaide has had fantastic growth in the past. And we also know that right now there are pockets of Adelaide which are showing, the generalised figures might show that Adelaide's up 1% in 12 months, but there are the pockets that are growing in double digits right now.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is, you know, and I know you talk a lot about this in your reports, Terry, you know, they lump the entire city into one figure, when there are, again, same as with any area in Australia, many different areas with different property types doing different things for different reasons. You cannot lump the whole, you know, the whole of Adelaide into one market. So again, when you look further south towards the city of Sturt, the city of Marion, what you've got going on there, that to me rivals, and those growth charts, they rival anything you'd find in a capital city long term. And as I said earlier, it doesn't cost you hundreds of dollars a week to hold. The yields are good. You know, but people don't, it just gets overlooked, like you say. Yeah.
What about Brisbane? What are you finding in terms of prospects in Brisbane at the moment?
Brisbane is an interesting one. I have been buying there for many years. I will continue to buy there for many years. It's, again, different areas doing different things for different reasons, but many of these great areas there, they chug along. Brisbane, as we all know, has always shown promise. It always threatens to do something fabulous. But really, when you look at it long term, it does. When you average these growth figures out, great yields, which generally lead to good cash flow, obviously depending on your property type, but solid areas like Moreton Bay, which we've talked about for years. It keeps delivering a little bit every year. It has little surges. It has a bit of a rest, has little surges. It's all going on there. You know, you've got massive amounts of infrastructure that has been spent there. There's more happening there. You've got that new university campus in Peachtree, the Northeast Business Park out at Caboolture, that train line that opened. They did that for a reason, right? That's all that population growth, and everyone's surging into the CBD from that area. And you've got really good access now because of that train line and also the roads. And I've been on that train line. I've sampled it firsthand. But also the driving to the airport and the port is, you know, the upgrades in the roads there. It's made a massive difference to people who live up there to get to where the jobs are, and that makes a big difference to those areas, right? Logan, I think down south it's had a funny couple of years, bit of a decline. Rents have held, but again, when you look at the underlying fundamentals of what's going on there and the infrastructure spending that's going to be happening down there, it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. So I do still like it. Again, it's a big area to cover. I'd be very mindful of those very large residential developments that are happening further south in the Logan Shire. Lots and lots of new properties being built there. So pick good established suburbs that are close to existing facilities and infrastructure. Just be mindful there. But I do still like it. But I know it's not going to get good press over the next few months.
Just a reminder to people watching, if you've got any questions for Kate Hill from Adviseable, now's the time to type them in. Kate is with us for another 5 or 6 minutes, so be quick.
I just started. That's not fair.
I know.
We haven't talked about Perth yet.
Well, I was about to ask you that because on my travels, going to Perth, I don't know whether it was earlier this year, to speak of I unexpectedly bumped into you in Perth, which was further evidence that you do get around the country looking at markets. Do you think Perth is about finally to come out of its slump and to move into a recovery phase, and therefore it would be a good time to be considering Perth?
I think it has stealthily been coming out of its slump for a little while. It's just that no one's writing about it. And the herd, as it were, aren't there yet. I think there's been opportunities there for quite a while. It's been holding very steady. The vacancy rates have been coming down for quite some time. All the big miners are hiring again. To me, there's been signs of recovery since that time. That was about 1.5 years ago, actually, that you and I bumped into each other there. I was actually there 2 weeks ago for a week. I was there for another week. I did another reconnaissance mission. Right. And yeah, all those signs are there. As I say, the big miners are hiring. There's a real vibe in the air. Vacancy rates are down. The airport itself is something to behold these days. When you go to that new terminal, and everywhere you look, there are things being built and shopping centres being upgraded. You know, when you look at somewhere like the city of Stirling, which is sort of their inner north, I guess, if you like, just north of North Perth, the city of Stirling, masses going on. IKEA are there, of course, which is always a bit of a sign. They've been there for a while, that's not new. But you can pick up a very decent property, you know, on a good sized block, and you are in town in 15 minutes. It's, you know, it's to me, there are real opportunities there. But again, it's not being written about in the media, so there isn't this mass interest. And so again, it's just stealthily doing its thing. And I think a lot of people will miss the upturn because they're not reading about it yet.
Or if media is writing about it, it's to say, according to the generalised data, prices are still falling in Perth. And of course, that, as we know, is very frustrating because it's generalised, and there have been pockets which have actually shown good growth. And as you say, there are opportunities.
Exactly. Yes. And rents are going up. And that's always a sign, right? Yeah.
I think it's an important marker for people to be aware of. When vacancies fall and rents start to rise, prices will tend to follow. And Perth is definitely at that phase of its cycle.
Absolutely, without question. And the local people are the local people. They're positive. You know, there's a very positive vibe coming out of there. Very much so. I'd even go further north up to Joondalup. You know, that kind of area.
Yeah, I'm definitely a fan of that area.
And you've got a lot of really. Go on, Terry.
Okay, one of our viewers is curious to know what Kate thinks of Ipswich, and just getting back to the Brisbane metropolitan area of that question.
Ipswich, yeah. Oh, sorry, was that it? What do I think of Ipswich?
Yes.
Good, solid area. It has, same as everywhere, good pockets, less good pockets. I'd be mindful of the very new developments around the big Ripley estate off the plan. Properties being sold there for, I think, well, as most off the plan is way too much. But if you think that whole area is very strong, again, be mindful of oversupply in those bigger developments. But I like it. Again, you're buying in the mid 300s. You're going to get mid 300s rent for a newish kind of property that's maybe 10 years old. You hang on to it. You don't overpay. These properties always perform long term. Okay.
Kate, a question from Justin takes us back to Adelaide. Kate, if you love your work, Justin says, if you had to pick a suburb in Adelaide to invest in early 2020 for around the $300,000 mark, where would you target?
Salisbury, city of Salisbury.
Okay, I would tend to agree.
That's actually not a suburb, sorry. I'd look at somewhere like North Salisbury, Salisbury Downs, that kind of area. Really good spot.
Yeah,
close to the hospitals, shopping, in town in 20 minutes. And Adelaide likes a 20-minute journey. Not too much more.
Yeah, there is a suburb of Salisbury within the city of Salisbury, but I'd certainly agree that Salisbury as a local government area is certainly a good place to target for that balance between affordability and prospect for growth. Time for us to move on, Kate, I'm afraid. But before we go, I'm sharing my screen so that anybody would like to have a follow-up conversation with Kate Hill from Adviseable about any of the markets we've talked about or any others around Australia. We didn't really get a chance to talk about some of the great options in regional Australia that Kate's very informed about. But the contact details are on the screen. Please follow up with Kate if you'd like to perhaps make use of her excellent services or just have a conversation about some of the prospects out there for 2020.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Happy Christmas, everyone, and enjoy the rest of these amazing experts. Thank you so much.